We now come to motion number 5 relating to business of the House today. Minister to move.
I beg to move.
The question is as on the order paper. The question is as on the order paper. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. We now come to the 2 motions on the terms and conditions of employment which will be debated together. I call the Minister to move the first motion. Justin Madders.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I beg to move that the draft Neonatal Care Leave and Miscellaneous Amendment Regulations 2025, which were laid before the House on the 20th of January, be approved. Madam Deputy Speaker, I am delighted to bring regulations forward under the Neonatal Care Leave and Pay Act 2023, an act which originated as a private member's bill during the previous Parliament. So I therefore want to pay tribute to Stuart MacDonald, the former member for Cumbernauld, Kilsyth and Kirkintilloch East, and to Baroness Wilde for successfully steering the private member's bill through the various stages in both houses to secure royal assent in 2023. This Act established new statutory entitlements to neonatal care leave and neonatal care pay for employed parents if their child starts to receive neonatal care within 28 days of birth and goes on to spend 7 or more continuous days in care. These regulations are another step towards the implementation of the Neonatal Care Leave and Pay in April this year and are the first to be brought before the House under the powers set out in the Act. Currently, there is no statutory entitlement for parents of children who require neonatal care. Parents in this difficult situation have had to rely on using other existing rights, such as maternity leave or annual leave, to be there to care for their baby and support their partner. This approach has understandably caused additional stress for parents. Some mothers reported that they have had to leave work because they were not ready to return at the end of their maternity leave. And because paternity leave is limited to 2 weeks, some fathers and partners have had to rely on statutory unpaid parental leave or the compassion of their employers in order to take time off work. Around 40,000 babies spend over 1 week in neonatal care each year. Once neonatal care leave and pay comes into force in April, we estimate around 60,000 parents will be eligible and around 34,000 parents will take up paid leave every year. Neonatal care leave will enable eligible parents to take a minimum of 1 week and a maximum of 12 weeks leave in line with how long their baby receives neonatal care for, on top of their other parental leave entitlements, and it will be a day one right for employees. Statutory neonatal care pay, like other family-related pay rights, will be available to employees who also meet continuity of service and minimum earnings tests. Eligible employees must have worked for an employer for at least 26 weeks, ending with the relevant week, and earn on average at least £125 per week before tax. If eligible, the parent will be able to claim a flat rate of £187.18 per week in 2025-26 financial year, or 90% of their average earnings, whichever amount is lower. Employers will administer the statutory payments on behalf of the government. Small employers will be able to recover 103% of the statutory payment from the Exchequer, while larger employers can recover 92% of payments and will therefore incur wage-like costs equivalent to 8% of the statutory payments that they make. This is a similar arrangement which is in place for other existing parental payments. Together, these regulations will provide protection and support for parents at an incredibly challenging time. These entitlements provide a floor, and employers can and should go further if they are able to. We have consulted extensively with... I will, yes.
I think the Minister giving way. Would he agree with me that these changes not only support parents who are obviously going through a really difficult time, but also are good for employers as well? Because actually, by showing that they're supporting their employees to get back to work, but with these additional rights, they're actually showing the support to the workers, which actually is a good thing in the long term for them as well.
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. He's absolutely right. The impact assessment does refer to evidence that has been taken about how more family-friendly policies are good for employers as well as individuals. That's certainly the approach on this side of the House that we take towards employment rights. So in terms of consultation, we have extensively consulted with stakeholders, including charities and business representative organisations, to ensure these regulations balance the needs of parents and businesses. These groups agreed that the proposed reforms would provide substantial benefits to businesses, including retaining the skills and knowledge of their current employees, as my honourable friend has just pointed out. I'll therefore explain in detail a few of the points of the regulations which have been developed through consultations with relevant departments, including the Department for Health and Social Care. We have designed a definition for neonatal care that encapsulates the different ways in which babies receive it, going beyond the walls of a hospital and including outreach care. This could include care that takes place within the family home, provided it meets the relevant criteria. We've included outreach care in the eligibility to capture the many ways in which babies receive care and to also prevent a postcode lottery where parents of children who receive the same clinical treatment may qualify in one area because they received their treatment in hospital, but not in another area as they receive their treatment at home through an outreach care programme. To ensure as many parents as possible are eligible, the definition of parent in the regulations encompasses adoptive parents, foster to adopt parents and intended parents in surrogacy arrangements. Those who meet this definition would also be required to have caring responsibility for the child. Having a baby in neonatal care is a difficult experience for any parent, whether the baby is admitted for one day or for many months. However, this entitlement will focus on parents of babies who experience prolonged stays in neonatal care, as they will be in the most need of additional support. A qualifying period of neonatal care will therefore be a minimum of 7 continuous days, beginning on the day after the one on which the care starts. Starting the clock at 1 minute past midnight of the day after the child is admitted creates a consistent approach that does not vary from baby to baby. The total amount of statutory neonatal care leave and pay available to parents will be capped at a maximum of 12 weeks. The maximum amount balances the needs of businesses with the needs of parents. It is also worth noting that the entitlement will be in addition to other entitlements for parental leave and pay that parents may also be eligible for. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, the leave and pay can be taken in 2 tiers. Tier 1 leave can be taken when the baby is receiving neonatal care and for 1 week after they stop receiving care. This leave can be taken at short notice, allowing parents to act flexibly in an emergency. Tier 2 leave can be taken after the baby has left neonatal care and therefore requires more prescription to ensure the needs of employers are balanced against the needs of employees. This approach provides flexibility for parents and, crucially, allows them to work around existing leave entitlements such as maternity or paternity leave. Employees will need to give notice to take leave and pay and provide their employer with the information set out in the regulations. The method depends on which tier they take the leave, and as members would expect, the stipulations in Tier 1 are less stringent than those in Tier 2. Where the employee wants to take leave in Tier 1, the employee will need to notify their employer before they start work on the first day of absence or as soon as possible thereafter. For pay, notice must be given within 28 days, beginning with the first day of the week in which pay is being claimed. When the employee wants to take leave in Tier 2, they will need to give notice 15 days in advance for 1 week of leave and 28 days in advance for 2 or more weeks of leave. This is because leave in Tier 2 can be more easily planned. The same notice requirements will also apply for pay. There is no requirement for parents to provide proof of their child receiving neonatal care. To make a claim in respect of pay, the employee may need to provide a signed self-declaration. Parents who are out of the workforce on family leave for extended periods may actually be at more risk from redundancy when they first return to work. We've therefore ensured that parents on neonatal care leave will be protected from redundancy, and those who have taken 6 continuous weeks of neonatal care leave will also be protected until their child turns 18 months old. We anticipate there will be some impact on businesses regarding familiarisation with the policy and managing the impact of employee absences. Like other family-related pay entitlements, employers will be responsible for administering the statutory payments on behalf of the government. Overall, we estimate the net annual recurring cost to businesses will be around £22.5 million. We also anticipate there will be a one-off familiarisation cost to businesses, which we estimate to be £4.7 million. But despite these costs, we anticipate that there will be further benefits to business, as there is evidence showing, as we've already referred to, that workplaces offering a range of extensive family-related policies are more likely to have above-average performance relative to workplaces without such practices. practices. My officials are also working with HMRC to ensure there is clear guidance on gov.uk to support employers in implementing this policy, and they're also working with Bliss, who I pay tribute for their work in this area, to ensure that parents are able to access the information they need to understand their entitlements as easily as possible. And I would take this opportunity to thank all those who have been involved in the development of neonatal care leave, including the Premature and Sick Babies charities, and for their tireless campaigning and support. I hope that they are proud that we have got this on the statute book and this regulation is going to be introduced today, because this will make a real difference to hard-working families who need this support at such a critical time. I commend these regulations to the House.
The question is as on the order paper. Shadow Minister Greg Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the opportunity to contribute on behalf of His Majesty's loyal opposition to this debate, and I welcome the introduction of these two statutory instruments. These instruments have been a long time coming. In 2019, the Conservatives made a manifesto commitment to introduce neonatal care leave, and it was a shame that in that election and in the most recent, no such commitment was made by the now government, the Labour Party. But that is no surprise, Madam Deputy Speaker. Just like all the good ideas they have, it usually turns out they were ours. Our commitment to introducing neonatal care leave led to our support of the Neonatal Care Act, which was stewarded, as the Minister said, by the former member for Cumbernauld, Kilsyth and Kintilloch East, and, of course, the noble Baroness Wilde. The Act passed in 2023 is the reason why today the government is introducing these statutory instruments. I'm pleased to say that with reservations, we will support them. We will support them so that we can continue to build on the sensible improvements to workers' rights we, as Conservatives, introduced in government. We introduced shared parental leave, giving more choice and more flexibility to families. We introduced carers' leave, giving employees more time off to give or arrange care for their family. We supported flexible working, giving employers and employees more flexibility over working practices. And we achieved these whilst increasing employment and increasing wages, a thing the government is realising now that is no easy feat. The result of our reforms to workers' rights is that Britain has some of the most generous maternity and paternity leave globally, meaning families are able to spend more time with their newborns. These achievements were reached by working with business and with employees. We worked with businesses not just out of courtesy, but because we know that without consulting business and actually taking on board their concerns, no progress will be made, no matter how good the intention. That is not something this government has done, which is why their employment rights bill is driving up unemployment before it has even passed. In the plan to make work pay, the government committed to rights from employees' first day. But for neonatal care pay, this is not the case. So can the Minister confirm whether this is actually the first step in rolling back on day one rights? Under the Neonatal Care Act, the right to neonatal care leave and pay will come into force in less than 2 months. Why have the government waited to introduce the instruments until now, leaving businesses less than 8 weeks to prepare and plan? And we have heard the Prime Minister has requested a growth test on all policies. Has the Minister conducted a growth test on this policy? And if not, why not? And more generally, this government's record on health, in particular women's health, has been disappointing. At the end of last month, the Health Secretary dropped women's health targets and those for women's health hubs. This decision will impact 600,000 women on waiting lists, lead to preventable disease progression, and lead to more women attending A&E, unable to work and care and live a fulfilled life. The Labour manifesto made a commitment to prioritise women's health, but as this government is making a habit of, it is taking with one hand to give with another. So can the Minister therefore confirm whether or not he raised his concerns over the cancellation of health targets which impact on this with the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care? But to conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, today... yeah.
I think the Shadow Minister given way. He talks about targets. Is it not his own government that got rid of the targets for A&E waiting times and actually then failed to meet their lowered targets?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think it's a brave Labour politician to talk about health targets when, of course, for so long the NHS in Wales was performing and continues to perform worse than in England when it was run by the Conservatives. But to conclude, we will support these statutory instruments because they will support the 40,000 families who face the incredibly difficult and worrisome experience of having a child in neonatal care. These instruments will build on our achievements that made it one of the best places in the world to be the parents of a newborn. And I hope the government can continue progress in doing so. So once more, I end by thanking again the former member for Cumbernauld, Kilsyth and Kirkintilloch East and the noble Baroness Wilde. I also thank Bliss and the Smallest Things for their consistent work that has kept neonatal care pay and leave at the top of all of our agendas.
Jane Craft.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I commend the Minister for bringing these statutory instruments before the House today. They introduce much needed and long overdue support for new families, which I'm sure will be welcomed by members from across the House. Because as every parent will know, the time after childbirth is a time like no other. It is both incredibly special and incomparably difficult, with lasting effects for the well-being of parents, carers and their baby. And I would like to pay tribute today to one of my constituents, Ashley Wiseman. In 2018, she gave birth prematurely to twins at 24 weeks. Her first child, Esme, was very sadly born sleeping. Her second child, Isla, was born 50 minutes later. Isla was admitted to neonatal care at Basildon Hospital before being transferred to the Royal London Hospital. Ashley met with me and told me about the fear and uncertainty she felt at that time, the impossible choices her family faced between returning to work or being beside their very sick child, and the financial burden of travelling to visit Isla once she moved to the Royal London Hospital. Ashley described what I imagine we will all find impossible to imagine: the long stays on the ward, some of her darkest days, and Isla given just a 2% chance of survival. After 7 months in a neonatal intensive care unit, Isla was discharged, and last month she celebrated her 7th birthday. Out of this traumatic and stressful time, Ashley created Isla's Journey, a charity offering support to families with babies in neonatal wards. They provide care packs for new parents at over 80 NICU wards across the UK. And this simple support makes a huge difference to families by allowing parents to spend as much time as possible beside their baby. And the changes being brought forward today will achieve the same. By providing a statutory right to paid leave for working families with babies in neonatal care, these regulations will remove that unimaginable and impossible choice for new parents to return to work in order to pay their bills or to stay beside their desperately ill child. It is difficult enough to have a child in the neonatal intensive care unit. The early days with your new baby are vitally important for the mental well-being and emotional well-being of new parents, as well as the early life chances of new babies. The benefits of things like skin-to-skin contact and those early bonding experiences cannot be overstated. And for the parents whose baby is in the NICU, this sometimes feels like an impossible task. This legislative change removes one of those burdens to these early experiences being a joyful time for parents whose children have that extra way to go when they are first born. But as Ashley and other parents will attest to, there is still more to be done. Isla's Journey, for example, is advocating for a travel support fund for parents because when a child is admitted to a neonatal ward miles from home, parents have to make long and costly journeys to spend time with their baby. And while these new regulations will take away the compounding financial burden of a loss of income, the travel still comes at a significant cost. And unless they are an inpatient, mothers and other parents are not provided with the basic amenities on the ward, such as a meal. When Isla was transferred to the Royal London Hospital, Ashley said it became nearly impossible to give her body the correct nutrition she needed to breastfeed. And when her child's life was so fragile, she often didn't want to leave her side for a moment, even to find something to eat. Other parents have chosen not to eat in order to pay for their travel to the hospital. So while I welcome the measures the government is taking in this statutory instrument to remove worries around leave and pay for parents at an unimaginably difficult time, I would ask that the Minister take away these suggestions for how the government can go further and perhaps meet with me and the team at Isla's Journey to discuss the measures that can make parents' lives that little bit easier, to improve the well-being of families of children on the NICU, the life chances of these babies, and to make it so that parents can focus on what truly matters most to them, the care of their child.
Before I call the Liberal Democrat front bench spokesman, can I just make the point that it is courteous to the House for members who wish to speak to be present for all of the opening speeches. Steve Darling.
Yes, thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and please accept my sincere apologies for being late. Things moved on a pace this afternoon, so I do take that into serious account, and please accept my apologies. The Liberal Democrats had these proposals within our manifesto, and so we really do welcome these proposals. 34,000 people are set to benefit from it. That's the population of Yate in the first year of these proposals coming to fruition. I note from the Shadow Minister that the Conservatives promised to deliver this, but a bit like their hospitals programme, they failed to deliver it. So one needs to bear that in mind. I would like to pay tribute to the former member, Stuart MacDonald, who raised this as a private member's bill, and also like to pay tribute to the Liberal Democrat member for Westmoreland and Lonsdale, who was a co-sponsor of that private member's bill that gave these proposals legs in the chamber, and I'm delighted that these have come to fruition today. I know in my own constituency of Torbay that actually developing an attachment between parents and children is often a serious challenge, particularly for some people who may have serious challenges in their own lives. And quite often you find that many of the youngsters who will be prematurely born, you will find that they are from more deprived backgrounds. There's twice the chance of that. So as Liberal Democrats, we would like to truly welcome this, because it actually drives that strong attachment between parents and their babies that can only bear fruit for our communities across the United Kingdom. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Liz Jarvis.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I would like to begin by paying tribute to all the parents who have campaigned for change. I would also like to commend the work of the charity The Smallest Things on this issue. Co-founders Katrina and Sarah have put their heart and soul into the campaign, laying bare their own experiences to shine a light on the realities of neonatal intensive care and trauma faced by families. These statutory instruments are a welcome and necessary step in ensuring that parents who find themselves in one of the most distressing and uncertain experiences of their lives have the right to neonatal leave and pay. Under the current system, parents have been left to rely on maternity, paternity or shared parental leave to care for their child in hospital. Neonatal care can often bring additional unforeseen expenses, including travel costs. For many, statutory maternity or paternity pay simply does not stretch far enough. While this legislation is a step forward, we must also recognise that more can be done. There is a wider picture of maternity and neonatal services that are under growing strain. The NHS workforce is overstretched and maternity services have been repeatedly flagged as needing urgent attention. We need more midwives, more neonatal nurses and more support for families experiencing traumatic births and baby loss. So can the Minister outline what discussions he has had with colleagues to ensure that maternity and neonatal care services are properly resourced and funded? Additionally, we must recognise that support for parents should not cease once they leave hospital. The impact of neonatal care does not go away when a baby is discharged, as many children and parents will have long-term health complications. According to the smallest things, the incidence of mental health difficulties, such as post-traumatic stress disorder, are thought to be as high as 70%. We should have expanded access to NHS mental health support for all parents who experience a neonatal stay, rather than requiring them to wait until they're at breaking point. Alongside the welcome introduction of paid neonatal leave, much more also needs to be done to tackle maternal and neonatal disparities. The government must act to end these unacceptable health disparities. Madam Deputy Speaker, this legislation is long overdue, but there is still lots more to do to support families after neonatal care. The Liberal Democrats committed to the introduction of paid neonatal leave in our manifesto. I hope the government will continue down this route and consider what more it could do to improve maternity services, including with a national maternity safety ambition beyond 2025, with clear baselines to measure progress. We would need real investment in the NHS workforce to ensure every baby and every parent gets the care they deserve. Madam Deputy Speaker, no parent should be sitting by their baby's cot worrying about pay or work. It is the government's duty to provide families with the stability, care and support they need during such a critical and challenging time.
It matters.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I first of all thank all members for participating in this debate today. I think there's been some very thoughtful and moving contributions. I'll start with the honourable friend, the member for Thurrock, who spoke movingly about Isla and her experiences in neonatal care, and to hear that having been given a 2% chance of survival, she recently celebrated her 7th birthday, was truly wonderful to hear. I think it's a testament to the great work many neonatal units do up and down the country of nurturing that very precious life and allowing it to flourish and grow. And of course, I will meet with Isla's journey. I will, however, talk to my colleagues in the Department for Health and Social Care whether it might be more appropriate for them to conduct that meeting, but I will certainly pass that request on. I welcome the support from the Liberal Democrat spokesperson. He spoke of the importance of parental attachment. I think that is something that we're really beginning to understand is absolutely vital for a child's development, and the more we can do in that area, the better. And in terms of the comments from the honourable member for Eastleigh, I understand the point she's made. I've recently visited the Countess of Chester, who are building a new children and mother unit, which is absolutely fantastic to see, and clearly more investment in this area has got to be something we want to see built on over the coming years. I will turn to the Shadow Minister's comments. I feel he was a little churlish in his support for this bill. I have to say I don't particularly understand the criticism that this was something in their manifesto in 2019 that they didn't actually implement, and would also point out that given that their government undertook a consultation 6 years ago, to criticise us for bringing the regulations forward in 6 months seems a little rich. And of course, he's already getting in his blame for any rise in unemployment before the Employment Rights Bill is passed. Of course, it is completely nonsensical to argue that legislation that is not law yet and is not likely to be enacted until next year could be responsible for job losses now. It's the kind of talk we heard when the minimum wage was introduced, and it was wrong then and it is wrong now. And I will address the point that he made about why this day one right is not in line for pay. It is, of course, consistent with all other parental leave entitlements that pay comes in after 26 weeks because you need a baseline of information about a person's pay to be able to implement such a right. But in conclusion, it is welcoming to see, Madam Deputy Speaker, support across the House for these measures. Those first few weeks when a new baby is born are precious, and for a child in neonatal care, the importance at the time is even more so. But of course, we've heard the lack of options for those parents who find themselves in that truly challenging situation serves only to worsen what is for many parents the most traumatic period of their lives. But by giving parents the additional rights and flexibility they need through these regulations, we hope that this will provide some much needed support, reassurance and stability. Parents dealing with a very ill newborn should not have to worry about whether they can get the time off work that they need, or indeed whether they have a job to go back to at all. I think as a nation we can all understand that, and of course the best employers do these things already, but by legislating we are sending a clear message that all parents in that situation, which could be up to 60,000 according to some estimates, will be able to put all their focus on their child, and that as it should be, Madam Deputy Speaker. So on that note I commend these regulations to the House.
The question is, as on the order paper, as many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. I call the Minister to move the second terms and conditions of employment motion formally. The question is, as on the order paper, as many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.